Just before senators leave, I should say that I will not be here for the December meeting of the Senate. There's been some question raised about my absences. I responded to this in an email I sent to all senators. I repeat today for your information. From time to time, my work takes me out of the country, as it will at the beginning of December. I'm going to China on behalf of the university. As you know, internationalization is one of our 4 key priorities. Nous avons adopté il y a quelques semaines un plan stratégique dont la mondialisation, la création des réseaux un peu partout est un item d'une importance primordiale. Alors, je ne serai pas ici au début de décembre. But I just want to make it clear, as I did in my email, that indicates on my part no lack of respect for the Senate, no lack of understanding of the importance of its role. It just so happens that sometimes when there are meetings I can't get to, we can reorganize those meetings. But with 72 people on the Senate, it's a bit much to ask you to wrap your agenda around mine so that I could be present for a meeting. The meeting in December will be ably presided over by the vice-rector aux études, and unless there's just to make sure there's no issue raised in December when I'm not here, I'm not going to be here. That's the reason, and we're going to proceed on that basis.
Mr. Chairman, since you bring it up, and I still want to address item 13B before we finish the meeting, I hope we can do that. Since you bring up your absence, I must mention that I received an access to information request response recently that showed that you had arranged an informal reception at your residence on September 12th, and that was a Senate meeting day, and you left early that day at 4:30 without providing an explanation. I find it difficult to understand how you would plan a reception at 5:30 in the evening on a day when the Senate is scheduled, given that the University of Ottawa Act statute declares that it's your responsibility to be the chairman of the Senate.
Well, I have a lot of responsibilities, Mr. Hickey, and they deal with a lot of aspects of my activities at the university and outside of it. My experience has been the Senate meetings usually end in time for me to host a 5:30 reception on behalf of the university. I went late that day. I can't remember why, but perhaps I'll look at the tape and it'll refresh my memory. Fact is, it did go late, and so I had to excuse myself to go and receive guests on behalf of the university at my home.
Mr. Rock, you're misrepresenting
what
happened in the Senate.
What about decorum, Mr. Hickey?
The Senate was
Mr. Hickey, what about decorum?
3 until 5.
You told me that I'm misrepresenting. What about decorum and respect? Have we forgotten already? Have we, Mr. Hickey?
I think it would be respectful of the Senate not to misrepresent the schedule of the Senate, especially when you booked an appointment at 5:30. The Senate is always scheduled 3 to 5. I think we can look at the...
Is this why we have students on the Senate, Mr. Hickey?
What do you mean?
Is this why we have students on the Senate, to poke through the president's schedule and see when he arranges receptions for the members of the board and potential donors for the university? Is this why we struggle to get student representation in the Senate? I don't think so. Is this respectful, Mr. Hickey? Is this relevant? Is this advancing the interests of students? Is it in the interest of the university to get into this? I don't think so. So we're talking about decorum. We're talking about respect. We're talking about using this forum for what it's intended for. I suggest we keep that in mind in relation to interventions like this. Is this respectful? Now, you have something you want to say?
Rock, will you inform the members of the Senate who you invited to this reception on September 12th?
Is this respectful, ladies and gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman,
is this reasonable? Is it a reasonable? You know, I was president of the Student Federation, and the whole centerpiece of my being president was to push this university to put students on the board in the Senate. We didn't have any at that time. And I wasn't very popular with the administration. I made my point very clearly, and we succeeded. The following year, they put students on the board and on the Senate for the very first time. When we made those arguments, when we insisted on student representation, it wasn't so we could stand up in the Senate and ask the president to produce his guest list for a reception he held on behalf of the university and make allegations about how the president was not respecting his role because he wasn't here for the end of the meeting. That's not what it was about, ladies and gentlemen. Members of the Senate, we pushed for student representation so we could get the student voice on issues that mattered. Yes, so we could push back against the administration when they were being unreasonable. Yes, so we could make our points when we didn't agree with the rector or his vice president. Yes, when we wanted to make changes in the way the place was run, or how the academic standards were maintained, or how people behaved themselves on the campus. But it wasn't about this trivia, and it wasn't about this constant needling, this nonsense, these points of order that amount to nothing, to hold up the meeting, to annoy people. If we want to establish decorum in this place, I suggest we attack that. I suggest we all behave ourselves in a way that's respectful indeed, and that talks about matters that are relevant and important to the interests of students in this university.
Chairman, I'm astonished that you've characterized my actions in my work at Senate as being irrelevant, as being not in good faith. Mr. Chairman, I don't see that as befitting of the chair to speak that way about a student, to misrepresent a student's work before the Senate in that manner, and I would request an apology.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Is there anything else that can usefully be done at this Senate? If not, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you. See you next month. See you in a couple of months.